And the way the world actually operates is through espionage, and no one wants to look at it except for you. Why is this so overlooked? And how does this espionage, sexpionage rule the world?
We're told that the elected officials make all the decisions, and when in fact, no, there's actually a shadow government who are the real shot callers and power. Dialectical philosophy is very relevant for us or people in the conspiracy genre because a lot of controlled opposition is operating on this kind of idea. In order to further the dialectic, you intentionally smash positions together.
Up right here.
Yeah, it's just this paper that disrupt online alternative media and conspiracy theorizing is to basically just flood it with fake conspiracies. I mean, this is pure evil. So that's the mindset of these mad scientists.
Yo, what up? It's DOENUT, and you tuning into all your Illuminati news. We are here with Apex researcher Jay Dyer. I really wanted to have you on, Jay, because I'm just trying to meet new people, try to do cool things. You know what I'm saying?
All right. You talking my language now, buddy.
Big fan of yours. Like I was saying earlier, I'm nervous to talk to you because I know how deep you've been researching for. You've had websites since 2007 going over esoteric Hollywood, stuff that a lot of new people are looking into today. You're way past that. You've picked up these heavy books, like Tragedy and Hope, and I'm here to ask you a lot of questions.
Okay.
It's going to be a fun show.
Looking forward to it. Dude, you got like infinite windows open there. I've never seen anybody have that many windows open.
Oh, that's how we do it. I even got other windows open too.
Oh, other windows of tabs. Wow.
But I wanted to start it off with the dialectics. This is kind of a new term for me. I got Joseph Farrell's book. Haven't read it. You know what I mean? I know that you've read a lot of this information, but my question to you, Jay, is can you explain dialectics for somebody like me? And kind of like how the dialectics are used to control the way people think and the way people are. And
yeah, so you'll notice there that it gives two definitions, and this is typically the distinction that I make between the first one listed there, which is no problem at all. Everybody engages in dialectic at a pedagogical teaching level. That's just kind of discourse back and forth in terms of argumentation and discussion. So everybody learns in this way. In the ancient world, they called it the alenctic method, after Alenctus. And so there's nothing wrong with that. The typical way that most people are thinking of it, and the problematic way, is in terms of the metaphysical contradictions and tensions in different positions and in different worldviews. Number two there is the sense that we're usually referring to when we're thinking about conspiracy research, geopolitics, controlled opposition, Hegelian dialectics. It's referring to the second and not the first. So that's our most relevant negative connotation. It doesn't have to necessarily be negative. You could study dialectics in the sense of just studying principles that are in opposition or believed to be in opposition: male, female, day, night, black, white, good, evil. A lot of Eastern philosophy is basically predicated on the notion of dialectical metaphysical tension. So Hegel thinks that all of reality is in this dialectical process of everything that's distinct is moving towards great unification at some future point in history. And Marxism, transhumanism, they all borrow from Hegelian philosophy by saying, hey, he got that right. Everything in history is working toward, for Marx, the liberation of the workers and the withering away of the state and some kind of future utopia. For transhumanists, it's everything is moving towards everything being conscious and being some kind of unified transhumanist supercomputer entity, like you see in movies like Transcendence or Lucy or something like that. So dialectical philosophy is very relevant for us or people in the conspiracy genre because a lot of controlled opposition is operating on this kind of idea of dialectical opposition, that in order to further the dialectic, you intentionally smash positions together, right? So you'll find A lot of Marxist philosophers even write about this. Lenin talks about it. And they're getting that from Hegel, and Marx gets it from Hegel. So Hegel's getting it from older pre-Socratic philosophers. Or we going to, agitprop could be an example of this, of agitating people to get the reaction that you want, because getting the reaction furthers your designs or your plans.
Yeah, and I could see that big time. Just the trolls alone on certain topics that start to pop up whenever I get into, let's say, Epstein. For some reason, I get no trolls, but then I start getting trolls when I start talking about certain topics. And it seems to be some sort of COINTELPRO with that. But this was a new word for me, agitprop, that I never heard before. I heard it on your podcast, I think like 2 days ago.
Yeah, this was kind of plays that were done, street performances, performance art intended to really ramp up people against the establishment, get them all agitated. I mean, imagine like a bunch of Antifa people, putting on a play where, they portrayed Donald Trump as a demon, or something like this would be the modern day equivalent of the way that Bolsheviks did agitprop. But it was just a way to cause friction. And so like, think about like Soros funded or AstroTurf protests, right? These would be similar types of ideas.
You just did a podcast with Isaac Weishaupt, who I'm a fan of and a friend, and you brought up Cass Sunstein, this PDF.
How did you already hear that? Are you a subscriber? Like, how'd you?
I'm a subscriber. You know me.
I was like, we did that podcast like 2 hours ago. Like, how'd you already see it? I'm like,
you dropped it. You dropped it before you came on, and I listened to it.
Like, dude, are you spying on me? Getting me nervous.
Oh no, I'm just a big fan.
I'm joking, man.
Yeah. No, I didn't know you guys recorded that today. So.
That was like 3 hours ago. It's crazy.
Oh, okay. No, I'm shout out to Isaac Weishaupt. But you brought up this Obama guy.
Yeah, this is a forgotten paper.
Yeah, I never heard of this. Can you tell us a little bit about this? I've never read it. I just got it up right here.
Yeah, it's just this paper that I guess got him hired to positions in the government, the Obama administration, where he talks about how different ways to disrupt online alternative media and conspiracy theorizing is to basically just flood it with fake conspiracies. So,
right, just a bunch of fake nonsense,
yeah,
and that's all over the place. And
yeah, I mean, it doesn't identify which ones are the fake conspiracies. Yeah, the point here is to just you don't combat these ideas directly, because that would give too much credence. And so the best way to combat is to really just flood it with disinformation, ridiculous conspiracies, get everybody debating idiot stuff, and then you've neutralized the actual effectiveness of any of the conspiracy theories, particularly movements like the 9/11 movement. The main concern that the paper has as its example is 9/11 truth and the various ways to disrupt the effectiveness of 9/11 truth.
And looking into all this research before 9/11, going into the Aldous Huxleys and Timothy Leary's, these certain agendas, like what we're hearing about at the Miami Nephilim Mall aliens, it kind of is a great example of maybe something getting put on, because all the news agencies were saying the Miami aliens, and even that, I believe it was Lansdale, who you've been talking about recently, one of his operations where he wanted to do the elimination by illumination, Project Bluebeam-esque situation. I think that was based out of Miami too. I'm not saying that there's a connection, but
it sounds right, because the concern was Castro and confusing Castro and riling up Catholics to oppose Castro by having the second coming that's fake and staged proclaim Castro as Antichrist. So it would definitely make sense that that would be out of Miami. I mean, that was where the CIA was really using a lot of those.
The big deep dive I've been going down is this John C. Lilly, Illuminati Dolphins, I call it over here, is meta programming. I didn't know how important that was to the social engineers until most recently.
Lilly describes quite a bit in his Programming and Metaprogramming the Human Biocomputer about ways to program us at different levels in our psyche. So basically, you kind of have these base programs that he thinks in his evolutionary model kind of come out of basic survival drives, and those are the lowest levels, and then you kind of have stacked all the way up to your conscious waking brain other programs that your biological software is running on. And so he theorizes that different means and methods, it's almost an unreadable book, but the parts that you can read and make out what he's talking about definitely plays into the possibility of future transhumanist ideas. He was a pioneer in microchips in the brain. They were doing tests with Lilly's technology and experimentation, not just with dolphins, but also with monkeys, implanting the microchip in the monkey's brain. He was a big part of that. So I mean, he's essentially one of these other lesser known MK Ultra figures. Yeah, this book is pretty wild because he thinks that, I mean, he basically says, yeah, I've drugged children and reprogrammed them. I mean, this is pure evil. So that's the mindset of these mad scientists.
Mad scientists connected to the Esalen Institute, as I believe he was teaching there towards the end of his life. This hard to explain book, because I tried to read it, I couldn't read it. You know, I'll go back to it eventually, but I know that Timothy Leary got the 8th Circuit model of consciousness, which he was like basing off of this, I believe. And then Robert Anton Wilson's Prometheus Rising made it into more simplified 4.
Yes, I've read that book.
This book was nuts.
It's crazy. Yeah, and it actually deals with dialectics and controlling and understanding. Basically posits that anytime you understand both sides of a conflict, you're in this sort of illuminated position. And if you never if you never choose a side, which is kind of silly, but if you never choose a side, then you remain, you know, the enlightened illuminist. Yeah, I think it reflects a lot of Crowleyan philosophy in that book. But
speaking of Crowley, let's get into some 007 stuff. I got to talk to Rick Spence most recently.
Yes.
And he wrote the Crowley Agent Secret Agent 666. Carl Jung was Agent 488. What? That's nuts.
It makes perfect sense, though, because at that time, the book that I'm reading and analyzing and dissecting right now is Aaron into the Wilderness of Religion, the CIA. And there's several chapters that touch on figures like Joseph Campbell, and thus it would make sense that Carl Jung, in this exact same vein, would be tasked with helping to consult and write these various white papers and psychological operations, because their philosophy is very much a unifying philosophy of how to maybe even read all of religion under the guise of psychological archetypes. And, you know, the CIA, obviously, the OSS, and then the CIA would find that very useful, very valuable, because they become key movers and shakers in the ecumenist one world religion movement.
Yeah, and I think that that whole John C. Lilly research is to reset this autonomic nervous system by introducing all these schizogenics to the public while they're on their AI phone. Giving them the alien disclosures, and they're having some sort of shamanistic experience and whatnot.
I mean, that's a good point. And if you've seen that movie with John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson's Cell.
Oh, love that movie.
It's about that idea.
Yeah, even there was a guest appearance of the Toxic Avenger, Lloyd Kaufman, in that film. Not Toxie himself, but Lloyd Kaufman's right in the beginning. And I noticed that.
The Cell with John Cusack?
The Cell, where they walking around the towers at the end, right?
Yeah.
He turn to zombies.
And you're saying Lloyd Kaufman, is that scene or in the beginning of the movie?
He's in the beginning of the movie, which
Okay, cool.
Makes me think he was Trauma was part of the whole blood gore part
of
the filming.
Gotcha.
Because you did film studies, correct?
I took some film classes, but my degree is in English and philosophy.
Yeah, but you do understand film so well.
Thank you. Yeah, I look at it from a literary perspective, so I'm not really technically studied in, you know, cinematography and cameras and all that kind of nerd stuff. I look at it from the literary and, you know, symbolic perspective, and getting into, you know, various stories of Hollywood history and espionage and secret societies, how they all kind of interrelate.
Yeah, so they all interrelate, and 007, espionage, even the term I've never heard about, sexpionage. I got another question for you. I'm gonna pull up the
Well, I
question.
made that up, I think.
Oh,
Although
you made
actually,
that up? You
I have
coined
a
that term?
book. No, I take that back. There's a book called that, and then I just started saying that from the title of that book. So technically, no, I didn't make it up.
Well, I learned it from you. And the question I got for you, I wrote it down, came prepared. Let me see where. Now, why isn't it pulling up? Oh, here it is.
This is really good interview because usually people don't ask these kinds of questions and they don't have slides ready to go. So this is a lot more. This is a lot more fun than the usual sort of.
You gotta have fun. You know what I'm saying? Yo, if you enjoying this content, make sure to smash that like button and go support Jay Dyer. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel over here. Links down below. And he got a event coming up on the Ides of March, March 15th. Hollywood Conspiracy and Comedy with Jamie Kennedy, Malibu Tay. Jamie Kennedy, Jay Dyer, and his wife, Jamie Hanshaw. Make sure to go to that event and learn a lot, get wicked smart. And if you like this content, go over to the Patreon, get interviews early, like the one that we did with Jay, live shows, hundreds and hundreds of videos with wicked smart researchers. All you got to do is go over to this $4.99, cheaper than a bag of Skittles, click this button, the information will pop up and you just fill it out, and then you can access all these videos. Smash that like button. Let's get back into the video.
Yeah, so I think the timing is good because, you know, Whitney Webb has put out her 2-volume book on sexpionage, you know, this one, which is that, and then the Epstein volume. So those are good. And then I just happened upon this old school 1990s book that I found somewhere. It's actually not sexpionage. So I guess I did make that up. It's sex.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, I thought the title of that book was actually Sexpionage, but
yeah, just did a podcast with Nick Bryant, and I know you were on his show too. Everything is kind of curated for this podcast for you as well. And the question I have, espionage, sexpionage, you talk about the swallow and the raven. And in the truther community, people talk about numerology, secret societies, and the way the world actually operates is through espionage, and no one wants to look at it except for you. Why is this so overlooked? And how does this espionage, sexpionage rule the world?
it's a good question. I think most people just aren't aware of this element of the power structure in our society. If people think of power residing in entities like the government, even though technically spying is, I guess, part of the government. But it might not always be. There are private entities that do it too. So I think people think of it like power is Joe Biden and rich people. But they don't realize that, but that power is exerted and ends are accomplished by people who are the worker bees that go out and engage in the activities that aid the power elite. And that principally is people who work in intelligence work. So they serve a key role. Spying is like the second oldest profession, supposedly, after prostitution. Or is prostitution the second oldest? I forget what it is. But the point is that this is the oldest, thing that governments and militaries do is get intel and spy. So you would think it would be more well known. For whatever reason, it's not. I think because people are dumbed down. We don't know how the system works. We're told that the elected officials make all the decisions and run the show, when in fact, no, there's actually a shadow government, a group of people that are represented by the national security establishment, who are the real shot callers and power exerters that most likely can trump, pun intended, politicians, right? They can go around above and beyond politicians. And in fact, as probably many people know about JFK, I mean, they can get rid of politicians if they need be. So the thesis here is basically just that inner secret power structure really calls the shots. It's not Joe Biden, and they work for more powerful, wealthy steering committees. Bilderberg, these kinds of things are at the top up there, and then people on those boards, your Brzezinskis, your Kissingers, they're calling the shots and telling them, the spies and the NGOs, the intelligence agencies, what to do and what to enact. That's the real power structure versus the facade frontispiece that everybody thinks runs things.
Right.
And the key arsenal, one of the key weapons in that arsenal, the key tools in that toolkit is blackmail, compromise, and sexpionage. And that has come out in many, many, many recent cases. So Savile in the UK, Franklin cover-up, Epstein.
Right. And Puff Daddy too.
Yeah, we did a podcast about 3 weeks ago, and we thought we were speculating that he might be sort of the rap Epstein. And what's coming out allegedly is kind of pointing in that direction.
Bad boy for life. Oh man. So I don't know if you ever saw the band Tupac cover of the Killuminati, the Dawn Killuminati album before he was assassinated. But he had Puff Daddy up on there in a dress. This is what I thought was interesting, is that Agent 488, Carl Jung, he was writing to MK Ultra Alan Dulles.
Jung was also at a famous institution. The name of it's escaping me, but we've dug this up on one of our podcasts when we covered Cure for Wellness, because the Cure for Wellness setting for the movie said, something about this reminds me of it's like a Freud Jung mix type of character. And turns out the institution in the movie, which is kind of an MK Ultra type of movie, looks really similar to this institute where Carl Jung actually did a lot of his research and talks. And lo and behold, another prominent person that came and studied and did experimentation there was at least 2 or 3 other MK Ultra doctors, including Ewan Cameron. That's it, Bergolzi. And if you scroll down, it'll say all the different people that worked at Bergolzi. And it's several MK Ultra people. Let's see. There's Carl Jung mentioned up there. Manfred Bueller, Jung. Yes, Ewan Cameron at the bottom.
Ewan Cameron, MK Ultra. Wow. Yeah. And this kind of reminds me of, the Esalen Institute, Tavistock Institute. That's sort of the same kind of camp, right? With mind control.
Some of those, I think, there's overlap, because Aldous Huxley went and spoke at Esalen. But Esalen is more like a think tank for the New Age and 60s counterculture movement. And this is like a legit, psychiatric institute where they're analyzing crazy people, like Brad Pitt and 12 Monkeys type of thing. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting, because I really like to go into what you cover and your wife, the pop culture, because I was so socially engineered throughout my life.
Yeah, we all are. Yeah.
And it's fascinating to live through something like that and whatnot. And I guess that kind of will bring me to some more of a spiritual aspect, because I lived through this whole counterculture and got into all the different pharmaceuticals that were pushed. And the only way that I got away from that was through God and praying and whatnot. The topic of angels and demons, I swear I had this question written out to you before your show on InfoWars, where you actually titled it Angels and Demons right here, Angels and Demons and the Intelligence Agencies. I kind of wanted to get a bird's eye view from somebody who is well-read as yourself, which is very rare to find someone to ask these questions about angels and demons, spirit possession. We know these things are real, but the only thing that we get is these Wicca TikTok 5-second clips of something, or the celebrities doing some sacrifice ritual, or the symbology of Satan all over the place. Can you tell us what is going on? What's your thoughts on all this going on spiritually?
Well, I think that spiritual realities affect us in the here and the now all the time. We don't see all of that, but we see it manifested through the imagery, the symbolism, and the actions of various people, whether they be influenced by good spirits or influenced by evil spirits. So that manifests on our plane of existence through, people intentionally, let's say, doing evil actions, or people intentionally doing good. So the people, I think, in a lot of these circles of Hollywood entertainment, music industry, I think a lot of them probably do take that seriously. Not everybody, obviously there's a lot of atheists there, but the ones that do take it seriously, I think they think that they really are getting power, projecting power, attracting attention. And a lot of the occult writers talk about doing, I mean, even Anton LaVey talks about kind of becoming your own little God symbol that draws the attention and energy of masses of people. And that actually empowers you and makes you a God, even if you're not, for all intents and purposes, a God. If you can be seen as a God, then you are pretty much a God. So you have a lot of that discussed in those people. And then obviously a lot of the Hollywood crowd actually does like Crowley, and they do like Anton LaVey and various, occult philosophers and techniques, Kabbalah, on and on and on. So I think a lot of that mysticism appeals not just to eccentric, celebrity types, but it also can appeal to intelligence agency types, which can utilize those occult worldviews to manipulate people. And from the intelligence power perspective of the establishment, they don't really care about which religion is true or false. They're concerned with how does this or that religion or cult give us the ability to socially engineer, experiment, mind control people, steer them in various directions, and use them to our benefit. And that's not just weird cults. I mean, that would apply to using the Catholic Church, trying to use Muslims, trying to use, all kinds of religious philosophy, Christianity, for the purpose of projecting American power. I mean, that's how the system sees religion as one of the tools in its toolkit. So I do think there are, real spiritual entities out there, but I think we can also go overboard in the other direction by thinking that all the symbols are Illuminati, all the symbols are satanic. This is really kind of a silly, kind of the evangelical, ridiculous, superstitious view of thinking that every time you see this symbol, it means this or that. So there's a lot going on in your question. It's a very deep, difficult question, but I think all of these layers and levels are the case. So you've got humans acting under various influences. You've got power elites acting under influences, and then you've got a spiritual reality that affects all those.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you're going to be in California, and I was recently out there filming stuff, and the Scientology stuff is like all over California. And I looked up from you're listening to you and Isaac's show, I looked up the Bohemian Grove that was trending, that story. It's funny because there's an ad for Scientology to watch something. I don't know what it is, but Scientology
they had a Super Bowl ad. So Scientology apparently had a Super Bowl ad. That's interesting.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're going to be out in Malibu, not really in Malibu, but California on the Ides of March with Jamie Kennedy, who I grew up. Jamie Kennedy has been in my family's living room. Wicked smart, prankster, family friendly, which is so difficult to be a comedian.
Yeah.
And impress my dad, who doesn't like any cuss words or anything. You're going to be with him and your wife, Hollywood Conspiracies and Comedy on the Ides of March. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, we had an event with him out there 8 months ago. It was a lot of fun. This was his idea. He said, "Yeah, let's do another one." I was like, "Okay, sure." So, now we're working on trying to, get people to come out to this event. It's fun. Our events are very unique because we do 5 hours of stuff. So, I do kind of a 10, 20 minute silly impression stand-up type of thing. And then we have Jamie, my wife, doing a lecture on Hollywood symbolism, film symbolism. I do a lecture. Last time I did philosophy. This time I'll be doing more sexpionage, geopolitics type of a talk. And then Jamie does his 20-minute stand-up set. A lot of fun. And we do book signings and all that. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun event. And March 15th in LA.
Yeah, make sure everybody click the links down below. I got Jay Dyer's, all of his YouTube links. And I don't want you to go. I'm just doing the pitch. You know what I mean? Cool. Click the links down below. You got to go to this show. I definitely I'm most likely gonna be there, but I'm in Arizona, so I've been talking to my dad about
Yeah,
it.
who doesn't want to meet B-Rad? I mean, you can come meet B-Rad, dude.
Traffic, looking for my chapstick. Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to be you and your wife and get them autographs on these books. You both do fantastic research. Make sure to go subscribe to Jay Dyer's YouTube and go get your event tickets right now. What are you waiting for? Go out there and get it. Yes. And on your website, I want to order some books. Would they be autographed too?
Yeah, everything from the website's autographed. You go to the shop at the top left there.
Okay.
Yeah, everything comes to Jamie's, my wife, as well. Everything's signed. So that's the advantage of getting it from. Is the link not work or something? Or just took a second.
No,
yeah.
it's probably,
yeah. So there's my 2 Hollywood books, her 2 Hollywood books, and then my 2 philosophy books and a couple other things there. So yeah, they're all signed.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna order these tonight because I need to get that autograph. And you got the Tragedy and Hope book right there.
Well, that's my lecture series. So some people don't want to be subscribers to the website. So yeah, so they have the option of just buying my Tragedy and Hope lectures. So
okay, so now I got some questions to ask you about the lectures. First, with Plato, well, I guess it's not about the lectures, but Plato's Republic. One of the questions I had written down is you've read the global elite texts and the Guardian class, the Rhodes Scholars, the elite in their idea in Plato's Republic. Within their moral framework, it's okay to have a noble lie for their utopian smart cities. I guess I could tie it into today.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what is on the minds of H.G. Wells, Bertrand Russell's creating a scientific technocracy, New World Order? Why do they want that? And what are these people all about?
Priests of power, mad science. I think they're all about, projecting their worldview by any means possible and achieving it by any means possible. So Bertrand Russell says very clearly that the model for the coming New World Order technocratic dictatorship is Plato's Republic. He says it explicitly in Impact of Science on Society. A lot of the same stuff repeated in his other famous book, Scientific Outlook, which also talks extensively about the future technocratic world government. Even though you'll see things like, but he criticized Stalinism. Yeah, but again, he believes in fact, in other books, he praises the Bolsheviks and the Bolshevik Revolution. So this is not somebody who's an illegitimate liberal, unless you understand liberalism to be like Fabian socialism and depopulation. So basically, all these people are Malthusians. They all want total technocratic control, CBDCs, tracking, tracing, everything managed by centralized computers and technocrats. I mean, these, and then he quickly has the same thing in the middle chapter of Tragedy and Hope. So that's what they want, and that's what they're about.
And the middle chapter, thank you for sharing that. The middle chapter of Tragedy and Hope, because you read, oh, look, it's so heavy. Oh my goodness. Carol Quigley, Bill Clinton's advisor or mentor.
How dare you talk about Carol that way? I love that man.
No, I'm not talking about him, Bill. I'm not talking about him.
How dare you?
I wasn't talking about him, Bill. But in the middle of this book, this is what took me to really dive deep into Jay Dyer's Apex research, is that in the mid, you just pointed out, in the middle of this big ass book, he breaks down the left-right paradigm. Is that what's going on?
No, the middle of the book is the chapter about the coming future managerial society run by technocrats and big giant computers. Later, I mean, he may talk about the controlled opposition. I don't remember, but if you get towards the end of the book, around page 900 to 1000, he starts talking about the establishment funding the liberal side of things as well as the conservative side of things. So yeah, he explicitly says, and he identifies the entities that you heard me mention, like Trilateral Commission, CFR. Well, he didn't mention Trilateral because when that book came out, Trilateral didn't exist yet. But those are the types of entities that he's talking about, and by extension, the intelligence agencies. So,
wow. And he also brought up Anglo-American establishment in his other book. I know I'm asking you so many questions,
Okay.
but I want to get wicked smart over here. That's what I want. I
Yeah,
want to
that's,
know.
in ways that book is even more revelatory than Tragedy and Hope. They're both necessary and they complement one another. But here he's just talking about more so the power structure itself, how it functions and its origins. And it comes out of the Rhodes, Milner, Rothschild roundtable groups, the Milner Society, the Society of the Elect, secret society that Cecil Rhodes came up with that he put into his last will and testament. People like John Ruskin, Toynbee, H.G. Wells, all of these people are reflecting this paradigm in the book and how it's structured, coming out of Cambridge, Oxford, Eton, London School of Economics eventually, which is a Fabian institution, and then the alliances that they made with the Eastern Seaboard establishment in America, particularly the ignoble universities, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, which is where we get the OSS and CIA. That's typically called the Eastern Seaboard elite. And those entities combined with Wall Street and the banking sector make up, and the industrialists like the Rockefellers, the JP Morgans, Vanderbilts, and so forth. That's the Anglo-American establishment, all those entities. And you could argue by extension, and the way that they rule is the roundtable groups, which are mirrored on the English Royal Institute for International Affairs. So the RIIA is the roundtable group that is the model for the American establishment of the Council on Foreign Relations. So they're mirrored, and that is the Eastern Seaboard Atlanticist establishment. It has nothing to do with Atlantis, just the Atlanticist establishment. That's the power block. And of course, nowadays, obviously, Israel, which actually was created by modern Israel, is created by these people. There's a whole chapter that I covered recently in Tragedy and Hope on the establishment of the modern nation state of Israel. It's all the same people. So you could say the Anglo-American Israeli power block.
Right. And that's a whole deep dive right there. The Balfour Declaration with the Rothschilds,
Correct.
Also the little mustache man connections too are very.
Yeah, there's two important chapters: appeasement, and then the funding of Hitler and Tragedy and Hope. Those two chapters are really important because I think it's $2 billion from the Bank of England and France to support Tiny Mustache Man.
So that's so wild. That's so wild. And you can learn all this over on your website on these lectures right here.
Yeah, subscribers get access to all that. But then sometimes people just want, the Tragedy and Hope talk, so you can get that, or they just want to talk on Plato's Republic, so you can buy that lecture series as well. But yeah, I tend to, obviously produce a lot more of these. There's a lot of books I want to get to, haven't gotten to yet. There's never ending, writings of the global elite to go through. So yeah, Brave New World, that's a classic one. That's an old one there. I think there's a better updated Brave New World that we've done, where quite frankly, and I went through 4 or 5 podcasts that covers the entire Brave New World. So that's an old 2018 analysis, which is still relevant. But Frank and I just went so deep that I would actually recommend people listen to all 4 of the Frank podcast, because there's actually so much in Brave New World that when I did that podcast years ago, there's things I missed. And so redoing Brave New World last year, so many things I noticed that I totally missed.
I remember reading this in elementary school, and it was like the first red pill. I really enjoyed that book, and it's Aldous Huxley, right? Who wrote that? Yeah.
Yeah. And then he says later on, this is, in Brave New World Revisited, this is an actual plan that people have. It's not it's not a pure fiction novel.
There was an article that came out yesterday, and it was about the decline of people having intercourse. I don't know the right way to bring up a weird topic like this. And they quotated the Brave New World, kind of connecting it. And I thought it was interesting, saying that Huxley's Brave New World was right. Our addiction to amusement is what will lead the decline of civilization. So like talking about the dopamine we get from this, people don't want to mate.
Yeah, the difference there being that between 1984, where you have this heavy-handed, miserable scenario of a dystopia, Huxley said, no, it'll be much better to control people if you give them pleasure for their enslavement. So if you're pleasurably enslaved, you're a much better slave than people who are, just have the hammer, the iron hammer brought down on them. So yeah, I think that is an apt point to make and critique to make, that Orwell got that part wrong. But there's other places that 1984 gets totally correct that Huxley doesn't get correct. So both books complement one another. I think in the end, Orwell ended up being a better human being than Huxley. Huxley, I think, was pretty much part of this whole system and thought ultimately that it's just what's necessary, because he promotes all the stuff that the dystopia, is about. He believes in, in the Royal Society circles, he believes in depopulation. He promotes everybody, getting some kind of new psychedelic experience as the replacement for religious sacraments. So he literally says that just go trip acid, do ayahuasca, don't go to church. I mean, it's just promoting all the basic ideas, the establishment. But people think, normies think, oh, he's so counter establishment. Dr. Spence theorizes that Dyer, the drug fiend, actually influences Huxley, which influences then MK Ultra.
Yeah, I fell for it. And it's
you fell for what, like psychedelics and that whole stuff? Is that what you mean, or what do you mean you fell for it?
For the for just the whole gangster culture of smoking weed, smoking blunts, drinking, and what I was actually searching for was God, and that's at the end of and that's what Carl Jung said about alcoholism. It is like I don't remember exactly what he said, but that's my experience, is praying to get over addiction is what worked. And Carl Jung was talking about that too.
Okay.
So there's a couple more things I want to bring up before the top of the hour. I don't know if they're really questions, just more of what I thought was so interesting, because I did get to talk to Nick Bryant, and I watched your show with him, and you brought up something that I never heard about. And I've been looking into all these topics, and Michael Aquino wrote this From Psyop to Mind War. And you kind of talked about it just a little bit, but talking about frequencies, the ELF waves. I thought that was interesting.
A lot of the research into electromagnetics and Tesla stuff, and naval research into microwaves and lasers. I mean, that's all pretty public and easy to verify. But what's going on, and even John C. Lilly that we mentioned earlier, he was studying a lot of brain waves and how this works in terms of not just human brain waves, but electricity and all of that, because they're trying to find ways to, like Jose Delgado did, put chips in heads and control them. So that famous essay about psychological warfare on the part of the Army that Michael Aquino wrote, who was a famous Satanist and founder of the Temple of Set. When you get to the end of that paper, he starts talking about how frequencies resonate and what they disrupt, what they can do to be applied to psychological warfare and fifth generational warfare, I guess is eventually what it ends up being called. So I mean, it's all real. The same types of things are mentioned in the recent NATO cognitive warfare documents. In fact, Rain Corporation has a document that there's so many of these, like there's always a new one. There's a RAND one that I just found today from Maria Z that was like cyborgs, transhumanism, and something, Rain Corporation, all talking about the same stuff. So I think that, the reality is that this stuff is real. Unfortunately, kind of like what we talk about with the Cass Sunstein stuff, is when you start talking about this, then it turns into this ridiculous thing of the targeted individuals, and it's all about the government's microwaving me from space, and all of which is probably not true. Right. I don't think the government's that concerned with random homeless people that live in a van down by the river. But they do care about studying this stuff to implement it through, nanotech maybe, or through the eventual Skynet system that they want to put into place. So, Klaus talks about that in the last third of his 2018 Fourth Industrial Revolution book. So, all of this is real. And when you read the actual literature, you start to realize that not every targeted individual is correct, because a lot of those people, unfortunately, have mental problems and they have a lot of, schizophrenia in that domain. But there are electromagnetic directed energy weapons. And they do study that to try to perfect it, I think, on a large scale. So I don't think they're primarily concerned with individuals with that.
I guess one last topic I want to bring up is just not a question, but just something that I thought was interesting as the Phoenix program. I've never even heard about the Phoenix program. And you and I believe Nick Bryant were talking about it and how it was pretty much creating, I think it was him that said it, pretty much creating serial killers. I don't know if you ever went down some of them rabbit holes with serial killers, going back to Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, I have multiple podcasts on serial killers and the Phoenix program and all of that. So I did, I think 2 years ago, an episode on Douglas Valentine's book, Phoenix program. He's sort of the one that first wrote kind of a big fat book about it. Other people have talked about it in their literature and their books. Dave McGowan, Program to Kill, talks about it. And it's one of the things that McGowan cites as part of his thesis as to how some of these serial killers of the 70s and 80s might have been vets from the Phoenix program. At least a couple of them we know were, stationed in Vietnam. So that's a theory about serial killers. It seems plausible, at least in some cases. Not every serial killer is a mind-controlled Phoenix program operative, but it does seem plausible in some cases, as far as I can tell. But yeah, I have many. I've got multiple podcasts on, the main serial killers that you could think of. Phoenix program is not just like the serial. It's a lot of operations that were going on to terrorize the Viet Cong. And in terms of what Lansdale was doing in the Philippines with, the chupacabra, vampire, whatever cryptids, you get the same kind of stuff. That I think, that thing. I think he took that because he went to Vietnam, and it looks like he was probably involved in the Phoenix program. So I think he took some of those techniques and they applied that. For example, in the Philippines, he had the idea to drain corpses of all their blood. And you'll find when the Phoenix program assassins are trained, they're told to do very similar types of things, to use the Eye of God PSYOP technique. So yeah, I went pretty. But the thing about Vietnam that you have to remember is that it's not just Phoenix program stuff. The CIA was doing all kinds of experimentation. Rand Corporation was doing research and development. A lot of the Vietnam War was run out of Michigan. CIA was using Michigan State University, if I recall. There's a whole chapter on that in Valentine's book. So they were doing a lot of experimentation and research there. So some of the research dealt with how to reorganize and move large populations. Some of the research helped to create Homeland Security coming out of Vietnam. Some of the studies about training militants in guerrilla warfare is then translated to the School of the Americas, Nicaragua, CIA operations to train Contras and so forth. So, and it ends up being kind of the pattern, Valentine argues, for the war on terror and the ideas of how CIA trained Mujahideen and Al-Qaeda would operate. Phoenix program is kind of a loose thing that kind of morphs perhaps into the programs used with these sort of wild Muslim radicals.
Wow. Well, we are here with Apex researcher Jay Dyer. Got all your links down below. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Get Wicked Smart. Go to the event on the Ides of March 15th. Jamie Kennedy, Jamie Hanshaw, Jay Dyer. Get your autograph. Much love, everybody. Anything else you like to add?
You remind me of a young Be Real from Cypress Hill. Have you ever been told
father.
that?
Yeah, that's my dad. No, it's not really, but that's.
Have you ever been told that?
Yeah, that's the long-running joke.
Inside in the membrane.
In the membrane. Yeah, so when I wear the glasses too.
So thank you, Be Real. Exactly.
Yeah. But he's also pretty
great interview, a lot of fun. Yeah, we'll have to do another one.
Yes. All right, everybody. Much love and God bless you.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you.